No,
So let's talk about race and gender as a founder of companies.
Okay.
So obviously, again, we're co-founders. We have the same status in our companies.
Mm-hmm.
And the key difference between us is our gender and our race. And so how is that impacted? Well, it's tough me asking the questions. I feel like I'm just like trying to prompt you here. But talk about like, I guess, so yeah, there have been challenges for you with that, right? Did you, going into it, did you anticipate that at all? Was it different? Like what was a curveball about it, I guess?
I mean, I think this is interesting because I don't know that we've talked about it from this angle before.
We haven't.
Yeah.
Did you have expectations?
I think that I was definitely thrown for a loop.
Yeah.
That we were treated differently from the beginning. But like when I think about it, I don't get why. But it did shock me that it like still threw me for a loop when we would be in a meeting together and people would assume that you were the founder and I was your assistant or something like that.
Yeah, we had one experience early on.
Yeah.
Let's share this.
Okay.
Just because it's super fascinating, especially to me, like as your white male co-founder. You know, we've been in situations where like we were at an event in town and we were sitting at a table full of people and like, you know, we had people next to us and I had introduced myself and then introduced you as my co-founder.
Yeah.
We were dating at the time, but in this situation, I didn't lead with that. I led with, she is my co-founder. And
that's one thing we've gone back and forth on too, is like when we were just dating, if we should like mention that at all, because we didn't want like that to also make people treat me differently.
Yeah. And I mean, there were situations where it definitely did. But so like introduced you in that context as my co-founder, and then the people were asking me questions about our businesses for a few minutes, and then they turned to you and said, and so what do you do? Like, what's your job? And like I had just said, my co-founder.
Yeah.
And like that didn't sink in to them.
Yeah.
And then even at that same event, like someone came up and said like, oh, hey, you know, you work at Code School too. Are you sleeping with the boss or something like that? Or like, you know, are you the secretary?
Yeah. And like she did know that we were dating. So it was like, oh, you got your job because you're sleeping with the boss.
Yeah.
And it was like,
what?
Like,
some implicit bias there for sure.
Yeah.
Pretty
that
brutal.
became very explicit.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Crossed many lines.
Yeah.
So I think, but like those things, I think there were things that like I didn't anticipate, you know, we're going in dating. And that's one thing. And obviously I'm a white man. So like seeing it from your point of view is not something that I'm like equipped with out of the gate.
Yeah.
And you said you went to a PWI. So like for college, you were in a predominantly white institution, but weren't your high school and like elementary or, you know, primary education were you at mostly white schools?
I mean, yeah, like elementary and middle was, but then high school, like, so junior and senior year, I mean, like I went to a public school that was majority like Black students. And so it's kind of like those years where you are like figuring out, I think, more like what you're interested in and like academically and professionally. And then you're also like getting probably like more into dating, things like that. Like, I guess like a lot of just you discovering you is happening in those years. And like in those years, I was primarily surrounded by like people who looked like me. And so then I think to switch it all of a sudden was like threw me for a loop. But I think I didn't expect it to happen business wise because I was starting my own business. Like, you think that you have, I think, some level of control or autonomy there because you're like, it's mine. But then when you have, I mean, like, whether it's people in meetings who like question your position of authority or like don't think that, like, don't look at you and think that you would be the person who's come up with this, but then looks at your founder and there's no doubt in their mind that, like, your co-founder, like that, there's no doubt in their minds, like, that you would be capable of coming up with this. Like, I mean, it magnifies, like, imposter syndrome. Like, it feels like it gives you an extra dose.
I was going to say, like, it's already, like, starting your own thing is comes with all of its own insecurities and like trials. Yeah. And it just seems like throwing that into the mix, like, would make it, I don't know, just a lot harder. Yeah. Or a lot more difficult, especially like in those times where you're like, I don't even know if I should be doing this. And then like someone treats you like you're not, you know, like you, but
and then like surprisingly though, when that happens, it makes you want to do it more. Cause I think that's probably why I ended up wanting to go into business for myself. I don't like being told what to do.
Really?
Yeah. You surprised?
No, not at all. As the one who's married to you, I'm not surprised at all. Sometimes they have to be tactical.
Yeah, there you go.
With getting you to do new things.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, it's, I guess, somewhat expected, but also kind of surprising that, I guess I don't know how I feel about your, like, saying, like, I wasn't expecting this, going through your whole life, like, in, you know, situations where it's not like you were at a, you know, you didn't go to an HBCU or anything like that, like, you know. Yeah. But I guess when you think you're going out on your own, you're like, this really is my own. Or
you think it's going to be different.
You kind of forget that you still have to interact with other people.
And that you're still in that same world. Like, I think that the other thing too is that, you know, like, college will feel like a bubble. So like thinking that for some reason thinking like, oh, this is just here. And that, like, when you go out into the real world and there's people who have life experience and like have interacted with all kinds of people and their professional experience, you're like, they're gonna know how to handle me or like will embrace me. And instead, when you're like, when that's not the case, it's it's hurtful.
I'm trying to think through other specific scenarios that we've been in together where stuff has happened. I mean, it still happens. Like, we'll be in meetings and people like look at me, and normally, like, to give other people the picture, like, I can, in most situations, I can like redirect a question at you. Like, you know, someone will ask me something and I'll be like, what did we do for that? And like, then they'll get the like, oh, they're on the same
team.
Yeah. Or like not the same team, but the same level. Right. Like that's a good point. We are, you know, it's not like you work for me. Like, I try to direct questions to you in ways that it indicates like, you're, you know, we're both co-founders. We're both at the same level here.
Yeah. You'll do like a good job too of like not answering, like, and it forces it to be like that I'm the one then who speaks up or answers. And like that. Yeah. I guess like what has this been like for you?
Oh, I mean, it totally, I mean, I didn't know how to deal with it at first, for sure. I think like there are some layers of complexity to it in terms of how we were dating. So like, you know, not knowing what my place is in our relationship, or, you know, what's okay or what's not okay. Like, some of those things I've had to learn, like, just by going through this situation, like, hey, by not saying anything here or not doing something here, I kind of hung her out to dry. Or like by talking too much, I hung her out to dry. So like the situations you described where like I won't answer something, or like where I said like I'd redirect to you. Like there were definitely meetings or conversations or interviews or stuff that happened early on where like I didn't do those things. And I think the thing for me is like I ask you how you thought it went afterwards, and then you'd express frustration. Maybe, you know, we joke about like it wasn't you, it was the situation, you know, but like
we did go to that as a go-to for a while.
But like, you know, in situations, the nice thing or the saving grace for me in those situations for my partner is that I get to go through them. I know, like if I go through them once, I know I'm going to go through them again. So like I reflect very carefully on those situations because I'm like, okay, like the first few times it happens, like I'm like, what could I do differently? Or, you know, how could I make it so that it's clear that we're on the same level?
Yeah.
Or, you know, at what point do I need to interject and be like, you know, reiterate like my co-founder, or we started this together, or, you know, those kinds of things. But that was like, that's not something like I just knew how to do out of the gate.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely taken practice. And I'm just grateful that you didn't get mad enough to leave me at any point.
Never.
In any of that. Yeah.
I think that what, like one of the things though that is great, like about you for dealing with this is that like you weren't ever ignorant to the fact that life is different for someone of a darker skin tone. I mean, I think going back to us a little bit with it, or our working relationship, I do like that. I don't like that like these things happen, but I do like the way that we've like learned to handle it. Like I appreciate that when these moments have happened, that you instead look at them as like, how can I like help you through this, or like to deal with this, and like you're willing to make shifts and adjustments. And I think that the easy way out would just to be able to be like, you know, like suck it up, or like get like thicker skin or like things like that. But instead, I mean, every time you're just like, nope, it's not right. Like, here's what I can do to help. Like, what do you need? We just come together with it. Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like with a marriage, like that's one key aspect. And I think that one, I guess, like from a growth standpoint, like it has, I think, helped us, of like dealing with this. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like, it's given us like real world practice at learning to like shift and adjust to like help your partner.
Yeah. I mean, I think, getting the practice to like, or know how to help your partner. I think that's like another form of therapy almost, like, I don't know, or marriage counseling.
Yeah. Well, and it's not expecting it to always be easy. I think that's the big part, is that like when someone will treat me differently, whether it's because of my race or because of my gender, that those moments always happen in the most unpredictable ways. Like, it can be with someone we've met with before. It can be a brand new person. We don't ever wake up that morning and we're like, it's Wednesday. Like, implicit bias is going to happen today. Right, like, instead, it's super unexpected, and it can completely throw off at least my day. Yeah. And so if it throws off my day, it in return throws off yours as well, because we're around each other. And I think that instead, like, that's also a huge aspect of marriage, of like, when the difficult times happen, it's not like they're marked on a calendar for you. Like, they're unpredictable, and it's like, how are you going to like shift and adjust to be able to handle them.